So I think we're going to get started. My name is Christopher Whitaker. I'm the brigade manager for Code for America, and we're excited to have you all here. So welcome to the webinar where we're going to meet Code for America's economic team. We're going to talk about Code for America's economic development work, talk about the National Day of Civic Hacking Challenge, talking about the technical challenge around visualizing promise zone data, and then we're going to have a short Q&A period. So I'd like to introduce our economic development team. We have Ephraim Bracer on the line and Caitlin Docker, if y'all want to say hi.
Hi, everyone. Good morning and good afternoon to those of you in the Eastern time zone.
Hi, everyone. This is Caitlin here as well. Excited to chat with you in a little bit.
All right, and I think we're actually ready for y'all to talk about what y'all did.
Cool. So, thank you all so much for the opportunity to chat with y'all. And, I'll just say personally, I've been at CFA for almost a year now. It wasn't until I went to Summit and sat with brigade members that I felt like really initiated into CFA's culture, and I just, really has given me a really strong appreciation for the work that you all do and the role you play in kind of building a strong community. And even before I came to CFA, it was Open San Diego that was my first kind of interaction with what Code for America does at a local level. So when it comes to what Code for America wants and what our vision is generally across all of our focus areas, economic development, safety and justice, and healthy communities, it really is about making services that just plain work. And that should be easy. That should be what we expect every day. But we all know that government is not like that. Government's not working like that. It's not working like that for the people who need it most. And so we're committed to redesigning these services to make it easier to access them, easier to use them, and easier to see in real time what's working, what's not, so we can quickly make adjustments and changes. And all of this kind of aligns nicely with CFA's kind of 7 principles and practices for 21st century government. Now, when we talk about economic development, and this is like my favorite image, and a couple of reasons. One, it's America, and I love America. So I think that's why we're all here. 2, who doesn't love amazing pie? And it's almost that time of the year where we're all going to be eating pie all the time. But really, in my mind, pie is all I need to know about. All we need to know about economic development. When we talk about economic development, what our goal is to grow the pie and grow it in such a way that the folks who have the smallest slices of the pie see the most growth, because that is where we're going to see the most economic activity. That is where we're going to see kind of a growth towards a way where we're addressing issues like income inequality. And we are really focused on making the services available that are meant to work with everyone, because the government unlike many other sectors, has to work for everyone. It doesn't have a choice of who it can work for and who it can't. So, the focus area itself has been around for just over a year, and that's really exciting work. But this isn't new to Code for America. We've been working on economic development challenges since our very, very early days. I think as early as 2012, really, with some of our initial fellowship projects. You can see a number of these cities are the ones that we worked with. I think Santa Cruz is in there somewhere, and that was 2012 when we did Open Counter. Is probably what really kicked off a lot of our work in economic development. We're currently working this year with the cities of Long Beach and New Orleans. Long Beach on improving the process of starting and growing your business. In New Orleans on improving the public workforce development system so that we are better connecting job seekers and employers through a training provider network, ultimately meeting both all sides of their needs. This is just a sense of some of the tools we've built in the past. So, and these are things that we continue to work on and think about. Open Counter, clearly a spun out company that has been, I think, changing the landscape for the permitting world. But you also see tools like Blight Status that became Civic Insight, eventually acquired by Excella, And in the bottom left, you see Premier Peso, a tool we built in Puerto Rico that we are really interested in seeing opportunities for further deployment across the country. Now, why is economic development such an important thing, and why are we really talking about this issue, and why is this where we're one of our core focus areas? And that's it's an important question, but I think these kind of stats are going to be demonstrating why it's so important. So the United States is the strongest economy in the world, yet it's the 46th in terms of ease of starting a business, and that's research number of the World Bank. And for a place that says we're the best place to do business, it's really hard to start a business, and that is certainly a challenge. Now, as the economy has grown, it hasn't really grown for everybody, and so that is one of the reasons why we're in New Orleans, where 52% of working-age African-American men are not working. That means they're both unemployed and not looking for work. That's important because New Orleans is probably just a microcosm of what you're seeing in cities all across the United States, where income inequality and income inequality by race and other socioeconomic groups has been widening. And that is something we want to be working on, especially the services that are designed to address that problem. And then I just kind of say here, youth unemployment is high, and it's 3 times higher than that of any age group. It's actually the highest rate it's been since World War II. And really, this is important because we know that youth, and these are people 16 to 24 getting jobs, has some impact on their kind of career, what they're able to achieve in their career, but it also has a lot of ties to them staying out of trouble, finding legal ways to earn an income, and ultimately stay out of the criminal justice system. And so that has major impacts for the types of services they would need, and also just has major impacts on what our taxpayer dollars are used for. So all of this to say that we really focus in kind of 2 core pillars in our economic development work. Improving how businesses and government interact, that is important, and that's what we're doing in Long Beach. It's really difficult to get permits, licenses, and get access to the technical and financial resources that help businesses grow and expand. We know that's important because nearly all job growth in this country comes from companies expanding or getting off the ground, and that's really different than what you see most economic development work around attraction. So we really want to give government the tools to help companies grow and expand and get off and start in the first place. And that is a lot of what the startup in a day work that's happening at the SBA and federal level is really all about. The other half of that is we got to bridge the skills gap. We have employers craving middle skill employees. We have job seekers craving these jobs that pay well. And there's a mismatch. And so that mismatch is around skills. And so we are supporting some efforts to move to a skills-based and competency-based labor market as opposed to a credential-based labor market. We're also looking at the workforce development system around helping people make sure that they're eligible, they're using that benefit, and ultimately that they are getting access to the training providers around both soft skills and hard skills that are going to be really valuable to get those jobs that are going to pay well. Chris, is that a good explanation? Is there anything you think you'd like for us to kind of go into?
I think that's a great overview of y'all the economic development team's work, and sort of a great pivot to National Day of Civic Hacking. National Day of Civic Hacking is June 4th. It's a nationwide day of action where local volunteers host events to try to leverage their skills to help their communities. And this year we're doing something a little different in having specific challenges that relate to several of our focus areas, including economic development. Ephraim, did you want to talk about sort of the economic development team's challenge?
Sure, I can, and I'll probably let Caitlin go into the most detail on that. I will say, one of our goals as a focus area level is to really be engaging our brigades and our brigade network in how we think about addressing those 2 buckets, whether it's starting a business and growing a business, or the around economic opportunity and around what it's like to bridge that skills gap. So you'll see some major, you'll see some those themes very, very front and center in the challenges that we've developed in collaboration with some of our partners, and really excited to really tell the stories of how our brigades are engaging not only with this data, but also documenting the user story of what it's like to attempt to start a business.
Great, thanks Ephraim. Everyone, hello, this is Caitlin, Docker at Code for America. Ephraim shared earlier his story of interacting with the brigades, and just wanted to give you a moment to talk a little bit about my experience here at CFA. I joined the team back in November, working closely with Ephraim on our economic development focus area. And I'm here to help all of the brigades in coordination with Christopher and Monique really tell their story. I remember I'd been on staff for about 2 months. I was sitting at home at my parents' house on Christmas Eve vacation and was flooded on Slack with a variety of brigade members reaching out, talking to me about their projects. And it was just such a spirit of welcoming to really join the civic tech movement. As Chris mentioned, our challenges are related to getting a better idea of what digital government services are like and how they differ across the country. Our focus area, at the core of our focus area, it's really making it easier for entrepreneurs to start a business. Earlier this year in the State of the Union address, Obama mentioned how small businesses are really the heart of many communities, and getting started can be the hardest part. To help address that challenge, the Small Business Administration launched the Startup in a Day initiative, working to tackle just that. So we're working closely with 85 cities across the country to really help them think through that challenge. There is overlap between Startup in a Day communities and the Brigade Network. In fact, over 40 cities are working on that same initiative, which is excellent to see that momentum. Now in Long Beach, we have a fellowship team who has done a ton of user research on how to start a business. And the theme that keeps coming back is, I don't know what I don't know. They're finding that resources are scattered, information isn't in one place. They aren't sure how long the process will take or how much it will cost. To start a business, you typically have to apply for a business license. So we want to learn about the process to start a business in your community. Do you have all the information you need to complete the business license application? How did you find that application? Is the application online, or do you have to bring it into City Hall? Is the phone number listed on the website, the actual number for the permitting desk? Are you able to get into City Hall? Are the hours compatible with your work schedule? How long did the process take? Questions like this will help us really dig into this challenge at a national level. So we're planning to take the research that you all do in terms of a journey map or service teardown and really bring it up to the larger Startup in a Day community. Help connect you with those folks in government staff who are already working on this challenge to help form that partnership and see what starting a business looks like on a national level. There will be time for questions at the end, so I'd like to transition everything back over to Christopher so he can introduce our guest from the White House.
Hi, everyone. So in addition to some of the focus area challenges, we're also going to have a series of technical challenges that have come from our government partners. At this time, I'd like to introduce Drew Zachary, who works with the White House Domestic Policy Council.
Thanks. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. And will you guys be able to advance the slides, or should I do that?
We can do that.
Okay, great. So if you can click to the next one. Thank you so much for inviting me to join today. I'm really excited to share with you guys the challenge that we have developed in partnership with Code for America that focuses on the promise zones. And I'll give you a little bit of background on what the promise zones are. This is something that's a major priority for the president. It's an initiative that he announced in his 2013 State of the Union address, and that 15 federal agencies across government have been working to implement in communities across the country. So I'll just give a little bit of background, tell you what exactly a promise zone is and why you should care about it, and then talk a little bit about what the challenge is and where the promise zones could really use help from the civic tech community. So like I said, the Promise Zones Initiative was launched by President Obama in 2013. And sort of to give you like an operational sense, the Promise Zones is an approach exactly, in the interest of everything that you've heard about so far on this webinar about 21st century government being better partners with communities, to achieve their goals. That include things like making it easier for local residents to start a business, improving the workforce development and training opportunities so that people can really build the best life for their families. So one of the things that the president has said a lot is that when he was a community organizer in Chicago, he would never have wanted to work with the federal government because the federal government wasn't a good partner. They dictated really top-down solutions and didn't listen to communities and the president. And what we all believe, and I think what everybody on this webinar knows to be true, is that local communities understand their problems and needs and strengths and assets much better than the federal government can, coming from the outside with a top-down solution. So this is something that we've really tried to act on and really, make real in the way that the federal government operates, not just through the Promise Zones Initiative, but across the board. So the Promise Zones designation is a competitively awarded designation that communities across the country will come together, for instance, in West Philadelphia and say, we have a set of challenges that we know about, and that includes, poverty and unemployment and health problems, and we want our schools to be better for our kids, and any number of things. They apply to the federal government to become a Promise Zone, and they're competitively designated. The strongest applications that demonstrate need in terms of the poverty rates and other problems that they're facing, and also capacity, the partnerships that they build, and the solutions that they've already identified locally together are awarded Promise Zones. And so what you get as a Promise Zone is the designation for 10 years, which is really great because that's, as I think we all understand, that's really the scale of time that you need to see big changes in a community, although you can start to see small changes right away. So for 10 years, each Promise Zone will receive a federal staff person on the ground to really be embedded with the local community and help them to navigate federal resources and implement all of the strategies that they've identified. 5 AmeriCorps Vista volunteers each year. So when there's 20 Promise Zones, there will be 100 Vista volunteers, which we like to say because that's many more than 5. And they'll also get preferential access to certain federal grant programs and also really broadly defined technical assistance from across 15 federal agencies. So we're really doing our best to be a good partner to these communities. Like I said, there are 13 currently designated. I'll show you a map in a moment, and there'll be a final 7 designated in just a couple months. So we'll end up with 20 high-need, high-capacity urban, rural, and tribal communities across the country who will be Promise Zones for the next 10 years. If you can click ahead to the next slide. I think that might be the map. So I think I'm having a little bit of a network issue, so I'm just going to keep going and hope that you guys are looking at a map. So the community is, there it is. Okay, so this is where the Promise Zones are. And what's really exciting is that there are really strong Code for America brigades in a lot of these communities, and in most of them, if not all of them, there are either active civic tech communities or really strong potential for them to exist and to pull together people who are interested in, becoming part of the civic tech community. So the lighter sort of green labels are the Promise Zones that were designated in 2014, and the red are those that were designated last year. And again, there'll be a final 7 designated this year. So hopefully this is helpful to give you a sense of where these places are and who you could work with. Definitely by no means you need to be located in St. Louis or Philadelphia to work with those communities. We would welcome everyone from across the country to work with any of the communities that you're interested in. But of course, there's sort of a special connection when it is the place where you live as well. And so the Promise Zone Challenge, where we really think that the civic tech community can come into play is that these promise zones have really, really broad goals that include increasing access to opportunity, improving educational systems within the communities, reducing crime and promoting public safety, and a number of other things. So what is really challenging for communities is that they don't have a huge amount of tech capacity within their teams. They have a federal staff person, and they have VISTA volunteers, and a ton of community partners, either in the city government or the county government or from nonprofits, schools, and public housing authorities. But they really need the tech community to be involved to help them understand how things are changing in the communities, what the baseline is looking like in terms of all of the data that we have on the Facebook where they're trying to move the needle. So the challenge that we've put forward for the National Day of Civic Hacking is to use the data points that provide information on all of these promise zone goals, so workforce development, educational outcomes, public safety, community health, and anything else that might be relevant to what these communities are interested in working on, and help them visualize that data. How is this looking across something like the Los Angeles Promise Zone that has almost 200,000 people? Where should they target their strategies? How can they see, where are the areas of crime, or where are the areas where there's, the greatest amount of homelessness, that they can do the best that they can at targeting their strategies and knowing, what are the most pressing problems that we're seeing in the data that are available. And that's something that we see as such a great opportunity for the civic tech community to contribute, because we have those skills and, can work with these communities to help them understand the trends and to paint a picture of what the promise zone data are looking like. It's something that they're really not feeling like they have the capacity right now to do on their own, and they're really excited about the opportunity for partnerships to develop to help them achieve those goals. So I think I will stop there, and I know we're going to have Q&A, but if there's anything else, is there anything else that you guys think I should cover, or is that a good intro?
I think that's great. And thank you so much for joining us. In addition to the Promise Zone Challenge, we also have some incoming technical challenges that are close to launching. We have a challenge around the Opportunity Project. This is in partnership with the U.S. Census Bureau, hoping to use open data to create apps that help increase economic mobility. And then we also have a workforce skills challenge that is coming down the pipe. And so if you'll keep an eye on hackforchange.org, we should have those launched soon. In terms of if you want to do something for National Day of Civic Hacking, you could go to hackforchange.org and register your event. If you are interested in tackling an economic development challenge and just want to bounce ideas off, feel free to email Caitlin. And then on the Hack for Change website, we also have some marketing resources like posters, an event postcard, logos, and a Should I Attend a Civic Hackathon flowchart. And with that, are there any questions? We have a question about how we might be able to help if we have brigades that aren't or events that aren't necessarily being held in a promise zone. I definitely take a look at both the Opportunity Project and the Workforce Skills Challenge, as those are a little bit more broader. The other thing you can do is you could also use data from your city website to showcase the story of economic development in your city. Even though we're encouraging people to build things for promise zones, some of the work we do in our cities to show the story of economic development in our cities can also apply to other places as well.
And I would add, I think our challenge around starting a small business is ubiquitous, in that, every place you go it's a thing. And one of the things we're really interested in is really documenting how similar and different it is from place to place. Every city has its own regulations, and that could be, you could be in cities that share a border. They're next door to each other, and they could have different processes. And so it's really interesting to see what that looks like, especially from a regional competitiveness perspective. So, I think really looking at those user journeys as ways to really understand how to access what it's like to go through this process, especially we want to go back to our startup in the day community and say, well, look what all of our civic technologists have found around what it's like to try to start a business in their community. One of the questions we would have is like, can you just go to the city and get a business license? In some cities you can. In a lot of cities you have to have some other paperwork, sometimes from the state, sometimes a zoning clearance, and that also varies by city. And so I think we're really interested to see how that dynamic varies place to place, and what that means in terms of the needs of businesses in those various cities.
We have a question from Code for Jersey City. Jersey City has an innovation department funded by Bloomberg. They've taken on full-heartedly the Economic Development Challenge. They don't, let's see. In fact, they've been good. I would, and this might be what we encourage people to do is to reach out to their government partner and kind of point out the successes of your brigade in taking on some of this work, and invite them to a hack night. And if brigades kind of get stuck, please feel free to reach out to the brigade team, and we can try to help you get in touch with your economic development partner at the city, or because I know that in some other cities, the innovation departments funded by Bloomberg had a lot of success in building things for their cities. And so we can use some of those examples to tell your city that, hey, you should really be engaging with your brigades. So we have another question.
Chris, I'll just step in and say we have actually, on the economic development front, are working in a number of cities that have I-teams right now. And I've been kind of working on getting more plugged into that network. So if we can to also provide some support and help facilitate ways that we can build upon their work, that's we are certainly able to help with that. In Long Beach, for example, the team even has a software developer, yet we are still there building tools alongside some of the needs that they had identified. So oftentimes they are really great at problem identification and figuring out what questions should be asked, and then still look for teams like our brigades or like our fellowship teams to kind of do some of the software building and data science work that actually yields them some tools.
Another question: Do we have formal initiatives for in-depth customer development and lean startup training? In DC, the startup community is centering around trying to help people learn how to validate whether people will pay for their products as a pre-step before business licenses. I don't believe we have anything specific. Ephraim, do you have?
Yeah. What I'll say is where we're really laser focused is going to be on the time where a business is going to interact with government. So a lot of times, the folks who would do our government resources and government training programs to help people do some of that validation and to do some of that business planning, to be asking the right questions. Oftentimes, entrepreneurs are not available of those resources, and the tech community is perhaps more and better connected. Think about the businesses that are on Main Street trying to open up a storefront in a low-income community. They're even more disconnected. So really trying to make it very easy for those businesses to find those resources. The business license or business tax certificate is oftentimes a very, very early stage that is required to go forward with some of the other programs. And so it's a kind of a catch-22. How much work needs to be done before you go for the business tax certificate? Or can you get a business tax certificate, pretty easily? And it's the other stages that require more work. So I think that those are, some of the questions how I would frame some of that, that work. There are resources being built and tools being built to help connect businesses back to those resources that are experts in the, finding customers and lean approach So, some of the tools, like some of the work we're doing around the resource matching function of Premier Peso, is about helping companies find those programs.
Chris, if that's true, can I just add one thing about the Opportunity Project? Okay, sure. Sorry, I wasn't sure if you guys could hear me. So, yeah, I would just second your comment that you made earlier that if you're not located in a promise zone, but you want to work with your cities, to work with your city's data or work on something that's local, definitely check out the list, like Chris said, of the cities whose data we have in the Opportunity Project already at opportunity.census.gov. We're open to adding more cities to that. In fact, really, really want to. That's a dynamic thing. Promise zones a little bit more fixed, even though we're announcing another 7. But if you feel like it would be really helpful, or your city's data would be good to add into the Opportunity Project, definitely reach out to us. Either contact us directly or on GitHub or Slack, and we'd be happy to add it. So definitely reach out if you see other ways that you want to work with either the Opportunity Project or Promise Zones in your city is not one that's already listed.
Well, awesome. Thanks for everyone for joining us. What we'll do from here is we've recorded this webinar, so we'll upload that to YouTube. I know it's in the middle of the day for some folks, and so it's not always easy to jump on these calls. And we'll post on the forum when we've got it up.